Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk Made in Abyss, episode 13, the season finale that was 50 minutes long. Roughly the length of 2 episodes. Just putting that out for the record. Anywho, Made in Abyss. Guys, first off, I am sorry that I wasn't around for the previous 2 episodes. I fell behind with the show and I only managed to catch up today. So that's the explanation for my absence. I apologize, however. Anyway, Made in Abyss. So when you look at the episode, you really realize that there's a few themes or a few messages that they really wanted to tell you in this episode. The first one was, you better feel bad. You better cry in this episode. You better shed a tear for Mitty. They really tried to ramp up the emotional response that viewers could have gotten from that. Which is, it's valuable. It's valuable. It makes for an experience. What you ultimately get with this finale is that they made an emotional crux. They wanted you to have the emotions. So because of that, it's pretty much like this climax is the climax of a character arc. It's the climax of a relationship. It's the climax of these 2 kids who had a really shitty time in the Abyss. And it ultimately ends off with actually a really nice note, and we'll talk about that when it comes to Rico's stream, because man, that was probably Nanashi's saving grace there. The second message that the episode wanted you to probably take away is that Bondred, the guy with the mask, Bondred, whatever, what the episode wanted you to take away from that whole segment is just this guy is the calmest guy in the world. He could just do other atrocities and he will make you feel like it's alright. I actually found it really unsettling. Bondred's a really unsettling character, and I think him having such polite rhetoric is really what makes it more unsettling. He stole the episode really when it came to the flashback sequences. In terms of a antagonist, I think he has a aura of unease that I think makes it for a pretty good experience. You have the plight of Mitty being thrown around with Nanashi on the light side of the episodes. Then with Bondred's scenes, you're in the dark, you're in these closed, confined spaces, and it's just, I like the dynamics. Even if you look at the atmosphere, the way that they were working with it, you have Nanashi and Mitty in the light with Rico and the rest, and then you have the Bondred sequences occurring in the dark. I think that's pretty good uses of atmosphere. Good for the episode overall. Anyway, the episode's all about finishing up Mitty and Nanachi's story, and I think the episode ultimately does a really good job. The final sequences, Mitty getting incinerated, was rough. That was rough. It was a touching sequence, and the last breakdown of Nanachi and crying for Mitty and apologizing and saying, pretty much pouring his heart out, I think was valuable, and I think again they did it really well with that whole sequence. Overall, I can't really just keep talking about how emotional this was. It was just, they had a mission for this episode. They went in and they accomplished it pretty much. Man, what a feels train. So anyway, I do think they used the 2 episodes worth of time. I think they used it pretty well. You have a continuous story, the story of Mitty and Nanachi and Bondred, and what kind of crazy life they led in the Abyss and all the horrible things that happened to them. Now, let's talk about Bondred and just what he was doing. Man, he is such an interesting character. Ultimately, the science that he's talking about, Bondred's new science, it's pretty much ethics-free science, and it's interesting how he went about it. It's interesting, again, just his rhetoric, how he just doesn't see the little kids as anything more than just his new experiments, and ultimately what he's giving us is some pretty interesting details about the Abyss. I mean, yes, absolutely horrific what he did, and it sucks for Mitty, it sucks for Nanachi, but it just kinda, I don't know, it's interesting to see someone actually experimenting into what the Abyss is doing. And so we come back into that whole idea about the Abyss curse, and we established the whole thing with the Abyss curse in the previous episode. Nanachi gave us the rundown of how it worked, and we have that extra mystery that's being set up with the curse affecting the little kids up on the surface. And so seeing it here, we have this situation with Nanachi and Mitty where you have both of them turning into hollows, and it's such an interesting thing. For Mitty, what I was wondering was, what exactly is it that triggers such an ugly kind of transformation versus Nanachi's much more cuter transformation. And I wonder if it's the idea of the pain. Is the pain itself something that would hamper the transformation process? Like, is your mental state at the time of the transformation what's gonna kind of affect the final outcome? I'm not sure if I missed any details that could have given me a better clue for that. So if you guys know anything like that, let me know down below. But from just the observation here, Nanachi turned into the cute rabbit while Midi's pretty much having her head split apart because of the pain. And it's just a really interesting thing. And then you have the idea that, well, Midi ultimately got a curse that prevents her from dying. And my friend was saying that, well, what if that's a case of Nanachi not wanting her to die, and so the Abyss grants that wish in the best way it can, and it gives her the curse of eternal life. You know, is that how it works as well? So is Nanachi's appearance influenced by outside factors such as someone else's perception of Nanachi? I just thought it was a very interesting thing. Ultimately, the idea that Bondred was able to make a machine that was able to concentrate the curse onto another person and keep the other person relatively safe from the curse was just interesting. It's a very interesting thing, especially knowing what we know about the membrane that is the force field. Very interesting stuff. Like, Bondred, he is an antagonist. He is a guy that we should be careful of. He is danger, but he makes things so interesting. Another really interesting thing about Bondred is that if you look at him and you look at his mentality, that this kind of offsetting behavior, that he can just do these horrible things and just go along like nothing's happening and just, you know, pat Nanachi on the head and have him helping him in research, while his former friend, or his current friend who's now a mutant, is being tortured. Like, the guy's just, you know, clearly for me, it's like, it's a case of, this man is a man who's gone into the abyss and has gone back to the surface multiple times. God knows what has happened to his brain. He is probably really scrambled. And when you compare him and Ozen, you might like just realize Ozen might just be probably one of the better people who got off of the abyss. Like, maybe her idiosyncrasies aren't that bad when you look at Bondred. Man, I'm gonna keep saying Bondred because I just like that version of the name more. Anywho, overall, I really like Bondred's character. I think it's interesting. I think he's a really interesting character. Now, the other parts of the episode that I really want to talk about are pretty much the parts with Riko, because this is the episode we get Riko back. She's back in action. She has her hand. She can't move it really well, but hey, the girl's back. And she has that whole sequence with Reg, where Reg gets an erection. It's like, all right. Yeah, you know, I was looking forward to that because I wanted to see how they were going to do that. I wanted to see how they were going to capture the awkwardness of two little kids realizing that they're about to hit puberty. And a fun fact, in the manga, Riko also showed self-awareness about her body, and it showed that she was also growing. I thought that was interesting. Like, it turned the show into kind of a coming of age story, because now you have these two little kids realizing that, hey, there's more going on with their bodies than they were previously used to. It was a neat little detail, and I like that they maintained some of it here in this episode. But overall with Riko, what I touched on earlier, you know, I'm really happy Riko had the dream of Midi, because it would suck for Nanachi if at any point he was given information that what he did to Midi was wrong. But with Riko saying like, yeah, you know, there was this girl, she was more terrified than I was, and then all of a sudden she was gone and I could smell something burning, and then I just saw this girl looking off and having that longing expression. You know, man, if I was Nanachi, I would go out into the woods and just cry my heart out and just be like, thank God, because that's just a giant weight off your shoulders. You killed your friend. You did it with really noble intentions. You didn't have much of a choice, and you're going to hope that what you ultimately did is worthwhile, that it's like what had to happen. You know, really respect that. Overall, I'm so happy for Riko at that point. Thank God she was having the dream. And I really liked what Reg was saying about Riko, that she has a life that's linked to the Abyss because the Abyss effectively gave her back her life. I think that's a really good point, and I would love to see if we explore that angle more. does Rico actually end up having some kind of sense for the abyss that other people won't have? We had a bit of foreshadowing of that, or at least like some stipulations of that earlier in the show. I think around the first episode when Rico was questioning whether or not coming out of the abyss would give her some kind of special advantage. And back then, her, was it Purple Whistle? Yeah, her teacher at the point would say like, no, you still are pathetic when you're coming out of the abyss. So hopefully we'll get something like that. Now let's see, any other notes that I have here? Not really. You know, the abyss continues being beautiful. It continues being a place of wonder. And the scene that we end off with this episode, I think, was appropriate. Like, the abyss has always been this experience. It's such a nice art style. And so leaving the Nachi's home and just seeing back at the little house that they have and like all the colors and just the flora pretty much, I think was a nice way to end off the show. It maintained that, again, like, this is a place of wonder, and we do touch upon that with Rico's rhetoric about Mitty, that she had the eyes of longing, the eyes that the cave divers pretty much have, like this sense of wonder. I like it. It's a pretty nice way to end off. Like, it's ending off on the theme that Rico kind of pushed with the abyss. Another note I want to make is also with the ending credits, we get to see the locales that we've seen before. We get to see the people over with Ozen. That was neat. And then seeing the package just get destroyed or get caught up, a monster coming for the package. It's like, it reminds you, like, yeah, these people usually have to send up more than one of the same package to make sure it gets through. But thankfully, Rico's package gets through and it goes back to her friends at the surface. I thought that was another great way to end it off. I think that's a bit of a bookend. Really appreciated it. It was cool. It was really cool. Overall, Made in Abyss, it's a solid show. You know, at the end of the day, it's stuck to this really grim world that the Abyss is. And it showed us the really terrifying moments, like when we see Rico getting those mushrooms ripped off of her. We see those facial expressions. It's like, yeah, it's a dark world, but it's a world that's also covered in absolute beauty. And that's ultimately what we got with Abyss. It had those moments of just really dark implications. We had that really dark world building. We had a culture based around death and the celebration of death. And then we have like the beauty and the natural life of the Abyss. I think overall, it's a solid show. It had some really excellent themes and it made for a really fun season. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. You know, people at the beginning of this show were saying that it was going to get really dark. This isn't the darkest that Made in Abyss can get. I know, I checked the manga out, but this was pretty sad. Bondred is the start of darkness, and holy, I'm excited for season 2. And I'm pretty sure we're probably going to get a season 2. I'm not sure if it's been announced already, but we're most likely getting a season 2. Anywho, guys, that's it for me. Thanks for watching this video, and yeah, let's leave it off there. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.